Section A, Project Applications Overview of the Proposal Application Approval Process. The Florida Department of Education and the DOE and the Department of the Grants of the Management Services Grant Management as responsible prior to the issuing request for the proposal and request for applications. The Department received notification and intended the federal and state funding department aligns its available funding for the applicable federal state requirements for the State Board of Education, the SBO, a strategic plan available at FDL Florida Department of Energy.org /strategic/plan. The appropriate program office identifies the specific outcomes, entitlement, discretion funds, initiates, develop a pre-approval project plan for the request for proposal and request for applications. The pre-approval project plan of the request for proposal and request for applications are approved at all levels, including commissioner and commissioner designee. The approach of the program notifies the potential application of the availability of approval funds, issuing the request for proposal and request for applications. The appropriate program provides technical assistance training of the potential applications in order to submit substantial approvable proposal applications when requested. The grant of the management will assist to provide technical assistance with the address and official technical requirements and expectations. The district agency responsibility on receipt of the request for proposal or the request for application. Read and review the request for proposal, request for application, determine if the district or the agency is an eligible applicant. Contact the Department of Education Program Office with a question of clarifications needed to the request of technical assistance. Note for the competitive proposal, the request for proposal will provide guidance on the proper method of seeking clarification. May be required for the question be submitted in writing. Complete all required application forms, see all required supporting document letters, and provide all additional information requested for the project description narrative. Ensure all that are required of the requested information are included in the application packet. Ensure that the appropriate person signs the application and the document assurance that the required of the application is signed by the person, district superintendent, agency, and headed of the single signed letter of the district superintendent agencies headed to authorization of the person of the sign for him, and he must accompany the application. Section A, send the appropriate signed, accurately completed application with the required documents to the address of the request of the proposal or in the request for the proposal. Request for the application includes the number of copies mailed and sufficient to received on and before the due time of established request for proposal and request for application. It is suggested that the application for proposal be sent through the via in method that will provide the documentation on delivery on and before the due date. Community-based organizations, faith-based organizations, independent colleges, non-governmental entities must be complete the DOE 600 eligible grant funding requirements for non-governmental entities and attach the application submitted. All applicants as a subrecipient recommended for the federal funded project grant must have a data universal numbering system DUNS number prior to the awarded document and issued in Section G, the General Assurance Terms, Conditions, Participation in Federal State Programs, and for more information on DUNS. The Department of Responsibility after receiving proposals and applications of the grants will be dated and stamped each proposal application on the date is received. This may use to determine the effective date of the project, resulting in the approval of the proposal of the application. The grants management will complete intake each proposal application to determine if it meets minimum conditions. Acceptance is specified in the request for proposal, request for approval, a request for application for the community-based organization, faith-based organization, independent colleges, non-governmental entities, and eligibility and requirements. The grant management will be forwarded a copy of each base organization, faith-based organization, independent colleges, non-governmental entities proposal application of the Bureau staff for audit resolutions, monitoring the determination of the second segment of the eligibility and process information awarding projects to the subrecipient section. In Section H, forms Department of Education 600 eligible grant requirements for non-governmental entities. Upon the completion of the review, the audit resolution monitoring staff will make a written recommendation for the application. Has a high risk or not funded fund the application. The recommendation will send to the Bureau of Chief of Contracts, Grants, and Procurement Management Services for review of the final determination. The Bureau will notify the grant management and staff responsibilities for audit resolution monitoring of the decision. The application not recommended for the funding will notify them written in the decision, and copies of the decision will also be sent to the Bureau Chief of the Grants and Management and Services, the Bureau of Contracts, Grants, and Procurement of the Management Services, the Comptroller, and the appropriate program office. The grant management will notify applications that do not meet the minimum conditions of the acceptance. The grant management will forward each proposal application for the appropriate program office for the review to determine program compliance, assurance, accuracy. In the case of competitive programs, initiate the procedures to determine the proposal application recommended for the fund. Section A. Continued. After completing its review, the program office will return each proposal application that is recommended to the approval of grants management. In the case of the competitive program, a prioritized funding listing containing all application scores ranking will be forwarded to the Commissioner's officer for approval. For each proposal application recommended for the program office, in the case of the competitive programs approved by the Commissioner's office, the grant management will assign the project number, generate the project award notification, complete the technical budget review, certify the accuracy documentation for the fund, forward the packet authorization signature. For applications not recommended to the funding of the program, will notify the unsuccessful applicant and grant management. The grant management will update the grants and management system, the GMS. On both behalf of the Commissioner, the Department of Education Bureau of the Chief will review the sign of the project awarded for the notification of successful applications, return the documents to the grant management. The grant management will complete the final review of all documents, make copies of the signed project award notification, and mail the original project awarded notification. Will copy the approved project application to the recipient agency head. The distribution remaining the copies as appropriate. The grant management will forward a copy of signed project awarded notifications with the original proposal application, including in all approved packages or all approved changes to the Department of Education Bureau of the Comptroller. The Comptroller will be the official custodian for the project awarded in files and awarded files or records. The Bureau of the Comptroller will distribute funds in accordance with the project awarded for the notification, will track obligations and expenditures through the required reporting mechanisms. The Department serves rights to waive the minor irregularities. Only the Commissioner may obligate the delegate and approve the proposal application. The Commissioner may assign the responsibility of design and designees, specifying the management level composition that they can approve proposals applications on the behalf of the Commissioner. The categories funded the program. Funded programs administered by the Department of the Performance-Based fall into the four following categories. Entitlement refers to the federal state programs for each application meeting the specific funding requirements and receive the funding according to specified formula or procedures that no discretion in modifying the purpose of the total calculated amount include the R programs to which a specific appropriation is made for the specific purposes to be awarded one or more selected districts, state colleges, university group districts, or other eligible agencies. Non-competitive discretionary refers to the programs submitted with the application-specific requirements to receive funding and programs designed by the specific agencies to which allocations have been earmarked for a specific purpose for the application process in the same manner entitlement of the project applications. Competitive discretionary refers to the federal state programs of the Department of the Funds based on the application satisfy the criteria established for the department. Cooperative agreement refers to the federal state programs that require the department to maintain sustainable involvement with the recipient in order to carry on the objectives of the program. Process information developing authorization, pre-approval project plans. For the summary of the Department of Education project application review and the approval process, estimated federal allocation and state appropriation. Annual department receives notification for the federal, state, and funding of the estimate and project identification, authorized amounts of the funding approval for the eligible agencies, align available fundings for the requirement of the State Board of Education strategic plan, identifying specific activities and services upon the receipt of the notification. Available grants and funding, state appropriations department assigned for the leadership project manager identification. Specific activities service to be funded. The activity services are designed to be aligned with applicable state and federal requirements for the State Board of Education, the SBOE. Strategic plans. It's just determination as appropriate as almost made by whether the grant are to be used or are to be distributed based on the formula, whether the grant are considered discretionary or entitlement. The forms formally used for the allocation of the funds must be replicated by an entity other than the assigned program manager. It also is determined whether or not the discretionary grants will be competitive, development of a pre-approval project plan for the determination of the specific activities, services to be funded for the allocation methodology, the department assigned to the program manager being construction for the pre-approval project plan. The pre-approval project plan used with the department describes the funding objectives, projected allocations, the application review criteria, the timeline of the awarded projects, the plan including the request for proposal and request for application. The Department of the Assigned Program Bureau, the chief of the initiatives for the approval process of the pre-approval project plans, the determination of the fund that is appropriate for the request for the proposal and request for the application during the review and the approval of the grant management. The track applications, the TAPS numbers is assigned, and upon approval of the Bureau, the Chief of the Grant Management will secure the resolution for any questions of policy as all levels of the Commissioner and Commissioner designee. Pre-approval of the project plans include technical components such as product services, impact services provided in the Northwest Regional Data Center as all routed for the determination of the technical offices of the approval for the approval of respective Chancellor, Deputy Commissioner, Commissioner, and the Commissioner. Pre-approval of the project plan is returned for the grants of the management project manager and authorization of the request for proposal and request for application and the funding plan. Process information awarding the projects as a subrecipient, distribute to the application of the package that each Department of Education Program Bureau will complete, distribute and approve the request for proposal, request for application, and notify the district's eligible agencies, purposes, scopes of the program, availability of the funds, timeline of submission, applications, instruction for the request for proposal, request for application shall inform the potential application for the types of projects to be funded, amounts available, method for the allocation, review the criteria for application, audit requirements, constraint for the use of the funds, performance, accountability, reporting, requirements, support for the department, reading, mathematics initiatives, as well as other procedure requirement restrictions required for the successful application of the request for proposal. Request for application must include the instructions describing the procedure, submission of the disbursement, return reports, and return for the non-distributed funds for the project recipients. If the program evaluation report is required from the project recipients, instructions will include specifics from the such requirements. Section 11. 112.061.14 the Florida State's statutes applicable counties, county officers, district, school boards, special districts, metropolitan planning organizations establish statutory authority allowed for the specified entitlements, establish travel reimbursement rates and other established section 11.12.061, 6A, 6B, 7D in the Florida State statutes. Each entitlement of the copy in accordance with the state includes project application copy of the applicable document, ordinance, resolution, policy, rules, and rule or have detailed description in the project budgeted form. Application requesting the funding for the most, including application certification page signed, and agency's head for the general assurance terms and conditions for the participation federal, state, and the programs. The school district, state colleges, university, government entities must have signed certification bearing the original signature, current superintendent for the school district, agency's head of the presidency, other agencies found the file of the Department of the Bureau of the Comptroller. The community-based organization, faith-based organization, independent colleges, or other non-governmental agencies are also required to complete the Department of Education 600 form eligible grant funding for the requirements of non-governmental entities, which require the following: original signature of the agency head of the application, head on the application. Application is official and registered Department of State, Department of Corporations, the application federal employer identification number, application data universal number system, DUNS number, list of application, current board of directors, signed general assurances, term condition, participation, federal, state programs, indication whether the application has been submitted in the past 3 months, copies of the application, current policies, procedures to generate the financial statements, the purchasing and fixed assets, copy of the application organizational chart, indication whether the application has been approved with received state and federal funding in its past 12 months, indication whether the application has received, operated, managed in any state of the federal fundings of the past 5 years, indication whether the application is or previously has suspended or debarred, indication whether the application has previously had a lawsuit filed against it, copy of the application approved of the negotiated indirect cost plan, if impossible, a description of the application final management system in accordance with the general accepted general and copies of the application, current policy, procedures used to generate financial statements, purchasing and fixed assets, copy of application or organizational chart, indication whether the application has approved, received state of the federal funding of the past 12 months, indication whether the application has received, operated, managed any state of the federal fundings of the past 5 years, indicating whether the application previously has been suspended or debarred, indication whether the application previously had a lawsuit filed against it, copy of the application, negotiated indirect cost plan, if applicable, description of the application, final and management system in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards, indication whether the application accounting system identifies receipts and expenditures, program funds of the receiver, recording expenditures for each of the award budget costs and categories shown on the approved budget, on copies of the application current chart of accounts, balance sheets, income state accounts, a copy of the application current operation budget, which includes the funding sources, i.e. the state, federal, and other funding sources, indication whether the time distribution records, time studies are maintained for all employees when the efforts cannot be specified, identified in particular program cost objective. A copy of the applications must currently signal audited report prepared, independent certification public accountant, the CPA certified public accountant licensed by the state of Florida, including copy of all management letters and issued with an audit. Copy of the application must receive final statements and filed with the federal state tax return. If applicant signal audit report is unavailable, name, phone number of the contact person who answers the final question, original signature of the agency head of the certifying that all information reported to the attached complete and the correct. Department of Education says in H form must be completed, all questions answered, and all required documents submitted but prior to the issuance of the project awarded. The options of the department additional documentation, financial statement of the ability may be required as a condition of the funding. Financial first-time recipients of the funding of the department will be required to complete a department online granted financial management training within 60 days of the date of the prior of the Department of Education. 60 days prior to the date of approval of the Department of Education, recipients previously funded by the Department of Education participating in the department training has same requirements for this first time recipient. The community-based organization, faith-based organization, or nonprofit organization that are recipients and sub-recipients of Department of Education grants projects are required to participate annually in this training. Non-participation in the training program non-participation in the training program may result in the termination of payments until the training is completed. Provide application support assistance following the distribution application page. The department staff will provide the support of the potential applications. The support may include binders, conferences, state and regional meetings, memorandums, on-site technical assistance via the telephone. The program technical assistance will help the application committed as a subject application that meets the requirements of the approved project plan. The competitive program supported but limited to ensure all applications receive the same information, that no applicant has unfair advantage. Submitted the application content, the number of copies the application submitted, the grant management, the number of the copies specified with the request for proposal, request for application, signatures, application certification, and the superintendent president, agency head, or their authorized representative must provide original signature of the Department of Education 100A certification page for the general assurance terms and condition of the participation of the federal, state, and programs. Any other required forms, applicable budget narrative of the Department of Education 101 and Department of Education 101S must be included and specified in the request for proposal. Request for application multiple district or joint agency application shall require the certification and by each participation. Any application signed by the officials other than the superintendent, president, agency must have letter of authorization signed before the official attached to the project application and the application is submitted. The program narrative, the application submitted in the federal, state, and project application must meet all requirements specified, but the request for proposal typical includes the narrative that includes the measurable objects that describe the outcome of the project, extent of the change accepted for the result, the implementation of the project for the project for the product. The narrative should also include all the timelines of the completion of any major activities, if accepted for the program narrative, the specific performance outcomes and deliverables, including products such as training manuals, report, as well as services. The application may be required to provide additional detail in the program narrative prior to the award of funds. Multi-year application of the program narrative shall be written to describe the total programs that are provided during the entire length of the project period. The budget information shall describe the proposed project expenditures of the specified budget period, usually 1 year. And the entitlement project application narrative description should include the project programmatic information required for the review of the approval of the program, permitted the public agency application. This estimated roll forward of the project application of the program narrative shall describe the total program that is provided during the period of the project period using the new allocation of funds, the estimated roll forward funds. Note that upon termination of the project, the discretion of the department, all equipment property purchased from the project funds will be transferred to the location specified by the department. All necessary actions, transfers, ownership records of the equipment property or department or is designated will be taken. Section A, non-competitive, competitive discretionary project applications. The narrative description should include the problematic information required to review the approval. The extent of the information request for the request for a proposal request for the application shall be demonstrated with potential scope and funding for the project award, degree to the completion of the anticipation. The project budget information application submitted by the federal or state or the funding state funding must include the detailed budgetary information sufficient to determine whether the proposed expenditures are in compliance with the state federal program requirements in correspondence with the narrative description provided in the application, such as the information submitted with the application standard budget forms and specifications specified with the request for proposal and request for application. Supplemented budget has been required to meet the specific requirements. Program requirements line items should be rounded in nearest dollar for in multi-year applications. The budget information shall be described. The proposed budget disbursement initial period of normally 12 months of the project period. The project recipients are responsible for determining the budget revisions comply with the application of the applicable status regulations, rules, and program requirements for the using of fiscal control functioning, funding and accounting procedures that ensure the program disbursement of the county, the state and federal funds in the accurate time manner. All budget and must be responsible, necessary, allowable, and legal to promote objectives for the program. Square. Footnote 2 project which I'll get to. All budgets and items and responsible, necessary, allowable, legal to promote objectives program are IBIDed. The project performance accountability reporting consistent with the requirements of Section 215, 1971, 287, 058, 1D, and E. The Florida statutes the Department project manager will track each of the project performance based on the information provided by the state criteria to successful performance, verifying the receipt required deliverable services prior to the payment, receipt of the application. Upon the receipt of the application package, the staff of the grant management date stamps the sort of the application assigned with the TAPS number, the relevant information entered in the Department of the GMS track approval, awarded process, the exemption of the competitive application of the request for proposal. With the exception of the competitive applications of the request for proposal, applications are sent to the department designated program manager for the review of the approval process. The review of the application upon assignment of the application package is reviewed by the technical accuracy compliance with the program budget requirements. Grants management program staff of the application submitted for the approval. Competitive applications are reviewed with the ranked and recommended for the funding of the prioritized funding and listed based on the criteria for the funding and planning. Recommended approval for the use of receipt of the application package. The Department of Education Program Bureau will complete a review of the consistent approval funding plan and sign to the project award notification and return to the package of the grant projects. The Section A, the Department did distribute award notifications upon application of the package signed in the project award notification. Grants management still will verify the formal and authorization to distribute the funds that have been received at the department following the verification. Original project awarded notification copy of the approved project application will be sent to the application. Copy of the project awarded notification original approved project will be sent for the Bureau of the Comptroller. Copies of the project awarded notification approved for the project application will be sent to the program officer staff of the Bureau of Comptroller and appropriate for the information cash advance of the reporting distribution system cards. The application not approved for the funding of the non-approvable letter is predetermined or pre-prepared, or if a non-approvable letter is prepared and sent to the application by the assigned program office. The multi-year application continued the consecutive year with the required the submission of the application amendment prior to the ending of the current year's budgets as stated in the project award notification. Department of Education 2. Hundreds. Project effective date of the federal programs funded by the obligated no earlier than the date of the project application determined on the department is substantially above the approval form is defined as the effective date of the federal grant award, which is the later. The approvable form as defined as the effective date of the federal grant awarded, which is later for the state programs funded, should be obligated no earlier than the effective date of the legislative appropriation, usually July. Multi-year application consistent with the state statutes, rules, federal regulations. Department may be determined a multi-year application should be submitted. A project period will cover the 2 or more budget periods. The new budget will be required annually. In multi-year application, initial application shall be met in requirements section A of the project application. Projects approved for multi-year funding for the receiving and continuation funding, and only and if the project granted is demonstrated successfully implementation consistent with the approved performance exception, adhere to all physical problematic requirements, funding for the purpose remains available. The minimum content for the approval of substantial approvable form, the application shall become eligible to approve of the project awards when the Department has filed the project application determined to be substantially approvable for the form. Substantial approvable form is defined as means the project application received. The department contains the following: the project application for the form of the DOE, Department of Education 100A, bearing the original signature of the superintendent of the school district or the president chair of the person of the other agencies. Project narrative DOE 100 and 100S. Is required in substantial supplemental forms. Signed certification bearing the original signature of the agency head of the president and chairperson, signifying the compliance with the general assurance terms and conditions of the participation in and federal, state, and programs, federal school district, state colleges, state university, general agency. Signed certification bearing the original signature of the current superintendent of the school districts, agencies, head of the president for the other agencies must be on the file of the Department of the Bureau of the Comptroller. Project coding. All projects approved for the department carry the unique project identification code referred to as the project number assigned with the grant management, consistent with the procedure described here, and upon the receipt of the project application for the identification, all correspondence to the department of project recipients should be contained the project number consistent with 13 characters. The first 3 characters are used to identify the agency. The agency identifies 3 characters of the alphabetical numerical. Each 67 counties of the Florida state is denoted in geographical location. First and second digits are assigned with the county's alphabetical sequence, beginning on Altuve County and ending in Washington County. Altuve County and 101 and ending in Washington County 67. And the exception of Miami-Dade 13. Other agencies numbered are assigned by the Bureau of the Comptroller. The third character is the Department of Education internal use. The examples are 378 Leon County School District. Example 378 Florida Music Education Association. For numerical listing agencies, please see the Florida Department of Education Comptroller Appendix Agent 1 Agency listing numerical. Alphabetical listing agencies number. Please see the appendix the Florida Department of Education org/comptroller/ PDF / Appendix 1 Agency list of Alpha. PDF. The U.S. and 5 of the characters identify the funding sources of the Department of Education, granted the identifier funding of the sources of the Department of Education, granting the identifier the fire. The character finally indicates the source for which the fund is derived. The federal funding projects, the normal consisting of 3 components of the first 3 digits denote the program fund is derived, but the 4th digit note that the program which funds are derived by the 4th digit and denotes the fiscal year the Department of Education granted for is effective. The last characteristic is a number. This last character for the Department of Education internal use. The example of the fiscal year of 2010 to 2011 funding would be 10. The official year of 2011 and 12 would file as 2A. By using identifiers accountable for the project is maintained. The identifier does not apply to the non-federal funds of such projects considered by the effective open only the current fiscal years. The last 5 characters identify the sub-elements referred to the project code. The project code is the 5 characters. The first 5 characters denote the last number of the state of the fiscal year the project is issued. For example, 2010 with the first character would be 2011 would be 1, and the official year would be 2011 to 2012 is at a 2. Section A, the second character denotes the type of payment. The character C is federal cash advance. Q is advance payment. B is reimbursement performance. S is quarterly advance of the public entity. D is other as specific terms and conditions. The term of the characters for the program and identify the alphabetical numeric is assigned with the discretion of the public program office. The last 2 characters are assigned with the grant management, indicating the sequential order agency application for the specific funding and services is required. For example, 0, 10, 26, 22, A A, the 2CB01. The project adds number of the Alachua County District School Board Individual Disability Education Act IDEA funds for the fiscal of 2011 and 2012. For the first three characters, identify the agency's next five characters are sources of funding of the IDEA discretionary for the 2011-2012 fiscal year. 22622A. Last five characters is TCB01, identifies sub-elements of the project. First identifies the first year of the 2011-2012. Second identifies the type of the payment, federal cash, advance, and three designates the assigned program, office of the grant management. The fourth and fifth indicate the sequential order agency application of the funding as source of the review of the 01. For submission to Alachua County, the school districts, the idea of discretionary funds would be the 01, 262. 2622 CB01. The secondary submission of the same agency funding of the sources would be 0262A 2CB02. The project begins the requirements of official program accountability subrecipient receipts found in Section C is official program app accountability. Section B, project amendments.